This is why we needed a PS5. Is the PSVR2 a failure? Is the PS5 success about to run out? How's it going, everyone? Welcome to PS Ready. This is the weekend news update. I'm here with my man, Ray Trevino, who's having microphone problems right now.
Hold on, I got it.
Are you okay?
Yeah.
What happened?
That smooth microphone placement. Let's get it popping.
We're a mess over here. We're ready for the weekend. But the first thing we got to talk about is the PlayStation VR2. Apparently, this thing has only sold 270,000 units, and Sony needs to do a price cut or else it's going to be a complete disaster. Did you hear this news?
Oh, word? What? Wait, what was the target?
I don't know. Like,
you don't know?
million?
Like a bajillion?
Like a million?
They
maybe?
were really expecting a million?
A couple million. They had produced.
A couple?
Yeah.
Damn.
I
I wasn't expecting them. It was going to be a tough sale regardless.
Yeah.
Because of the price point.
Yeah, being
and,
more expensive than a PS5.
And
not great.
And we looked at it together, and I would say that it's worth the price because the quality is very nice, and overall, I thought it was a fair price point. But yeah, I can.
It's really hard to convey.
Yeah, it's in a video. It's like when you're talking about it, it's very hard to convey for you guys watching. Just how good the quality is, because it's like, dude. What when you see VR on a 2D screen, it's like, what is this?
Yeah, and the graphics are inherently worse in VR, right? So you can't really you have to make pre-rendered stuff to advertise why VR is cool, but also the 3D factor, the interactive factor. Like, when I was really sold on VR for the first time was when we did a sponsored video over at Austin Evans Enterprises, Overclock Media, and he got sponsored by the Oculus Quest, and I got to try it out. And I was like, whoa, okay, I understand why this is cool. But up until that point, VR did not exist in my mind. I was like, whatever, the PSVR 1, fine, whatever, the Oculus Rift, the Valve Index, I don't even know if it was out at the time. I didn't care, because I was like, this is expensive, it requires all new games, like there's a lot of hurdles you have to jump over to get into VR. And I feel like that's still the case. No matter how good you make the headset, people need to try it first to understand how cool it is.
I think the Quest really kind of messed things up, Once it came out, $300, that not the most recent model, but the one in between.
Yeah, I think it was like $299.
$300. That's what people expect. You can talk to them all day until you're blue in the face about these new and improved features for these nicer headsets, but they see that $300 price point, and that's what they expect now. And so when
even though they raised the price on the Oculus Quest 2,
and that's
and then they come out with the Pro and it's like $1,500. I don't know what's happening there. But the games also, like launching with a Horizon game, look, I know Horizon's a big seller. I know that people enjoy it. Horizon to me is like the avatar of first-party PlayStation games, right? It makes a lot of money, but nobody talks about it ever. So starting off with like a Horizon game,
it is
a little weak.
Can I make a bold assumption that will make probably a lot of you mad? Out of the PlayStation exclusives, the Horizon is my least favorite, I would say.
I think the viewers will probably agree with you. Like, it's a cool game.
I'm like, it's fine.
It's just
fine. The concept is cool. Dinosaurs, mechs. Oh my god, this is crazy. Post-apocalypse. Society after what we know.
Yeah,
that's a cool concept. And then I play it. I'm like, something is just not. It's not hitting for me.
The combat's
in comparison to the other exclusives that we've seen.
Yeah, it is good graphics. Combat's cool. Good voice acting. Obviously, Lance Reddick was a great character in it. Silence, rest in peace, Zavala. But but yeah, it's just like it's a Ubisoft game. It's a Ubisoft open world game that's not full of microtransactions and has more effort put into it, which sounds negative, and I guess it is, but it also has the unfortunate timing of releasing around Breath of the Wild, which kind of revolutionized the genre, and then Elden Ring for the second one. So yeah, launching with a Horizon game, not what I would have picked. Personally, I probably would have done Ghost of Tsushima, since that's one of the better selling franchises now that people really love. I would have launched with something like that. Uncharted would have been a great time to revive that. Obviously, The Last of Us is bigger than it's ever been. That's another great pick that I would have launched with. Like, there are so many other franchises that Sony could have focused on, like God of War even, that I think would have been better picks for a launch game than Horizon. And then Resident Evil Village, that's the best VR game I've ever played. I think that's probably doing a lot of the legwork on moving units here.
So where do they go from here? They didn't hit their target. It's not selling particularly well. How much are they slashing the price? Do we know?
They aren't. As far as we know, this analyst who's talking about this basically said they should slash the price, and I agree. I think they should sell it at like $350, $400, like $300 even.
I think VR has great potential. You know, that's been the stuff of movies, literature, literally putting yourself in the game, experiencing it all around you with all of your senses. But it just hasn't caught on in the way that I feel like people want it to.
They need some sort of like Sony store or like a section in Best Buy or Target, you know, or like go down to the Santa Monica Pier with a PSVR2 truck or something. They got to have some way for people to try it out, because you can throw as much marketing as you want at this thing, but people, there's a disconnect between them and what it's like to have a VR headset on.
Yeah.
Next up, we're going to talk about why the DLC for Horizon, speaking of Horizon, is skipping the PlayStation 4. We've heard a lot of people complaining about this, weirdly, which I wasn't expecting, but they basically just...
You're surprised that gamers are complaining?
I just am shocked at how many people have not upgraded to the PlayStation 5 yet, even though it had its best month ever, like for a PlayStation console in February. People are still saying, man, I played Horizon Forbidden West on my PS4. I want to play the expansion on my PS4, just like I did with Ghost of Tsushima. I would say just upgrade to the PS5, dude. Like, you can get PS Plus Extra and just play the game again.
That is fair, though. They played it on their PlayStation 4. The expansion should be available on the PlayStation 4. That is valid.
To them, I would say
that is completely valid.
Came out in 2020. It's time to move on.
Who's buying a PlayStation 5 just to play an expansion, though?
I know, right?
No, come on.
I don't know how many people are going to play this expansion, but it turns out the reason that they're ditching the PS4 for this is because of the clouds. The clouds in Forbidden West, the Burning Shores, are so revolutionary and graphically intensive that they could not run this expansion on the PlayStation 4. There are other things that they've talked about, like just better combat overall, faster loading, blah, blah, blah. But these clouds, these voxel-based clouds, are what is really going to push the realism of Horizon Forbidden West, the Burning Shores.
Are they different than the clouds in the base game?
Yep. They are...
significantly so?
Yeah, from the article I was reading, apparently they are like immediately better. Weirdly enough, the person who wrote the article that I was reading about this over on Kotaku basically said that they were taking a lot of screenshots in Forbidden West in the first place because the clouds already looked realistic, and that they were torn over this change because it does look a lot better. They're just not sure if it was necessary, but then when they see it, they're like, oh yeah, it is totally necessary. Voxel-based stuff is really cool. I remember voxels being like introduced on the PlayStation 4 with the first launch title on PS Plus, Resogun, which is made by Housemarque, the studio that made Returnal. And basically it's like making stuff out of little squares. And when you do it makes it more realistic. They're really hyping up this expansion for Horizon when, you know, Final Fantasy 16 is right around the corner. And I'd much rather see some more hype for that, where it feels like Square Enix is doing all the hype for Final Fantasy 16. Like, this game looks absolutely incredible, and it's going up against Diablo 4. Like, Sony, counter the Xbox Diablo 4 marketing with some Final Fantasy 16 marketing. You paid all this money to get exclusivity on the game. Like, let's hype us up. I think it's time for a showcase.
It feels kind of strange that they went like bananas bonkers with the freaking Forspoken marketing, and I've heard like next to nothing about Final Fantasy 16.
Yeah, Sony, the game output this year is very strange. I think it's cool that they're doing an expansion for Horizon. I think it's cool that it's like a sequel to the story instead of how they did the expansion for the first game, which was you could play it like halfway through the game. So if you beat the game, you could go back and play it, but the dialogue in it and everything clearly was like left ambiguous so that it didn't need to be a sequel to the game. But yeah, they're doing it their own thing and making this borderline standalone. I would have just loved to see this be a standalone thing you can just purchase as a separate PS5 game, right? Like charge $20 for it like you did with Infamous First Light back in the day. I wish Guerrilla would make a first-person shooter again and implement all of this technology. That would be great. I thought Killzone was an awesome franchise, and I'd like to see more of it. But it looks like we have some stuff to worry about with the PlayStation Ray. So we've heard all this stuff about how the Xbox Series X is the most powerful console ever. It's so much more powerful than the PlayStation 5, blah, blah, blah. And then all these games keep coming out, and they run and look better on the PlayStation 5, which is really weird.
Well, hold on.
Am I wrong?
When I was talking to one of my friends about this, who works at a Sony studio, he says the difference is like negligible.
Yeah, I've heard that too.
It's like very kind of like almost a wash. So, the PlayStation 5 theoretically is better at some things. Series X is theoretically better at others, but most of the time it's just a wash.
Yeah, which makes it weird that we keep seeing games like Resident Evil 4, for example, that holds a perfect 60 FPS on PlayStation 5, but then over on Xbox, you get a higher resolution, I think, but like overall the resolution stays higher on Xbox, but the frame rate fluctuates a lot more, which is a pretty common issue that we keep seeing, and I don't understand why that is, but an analyst seems to disagree with your friend because he's saying in a year or two, we are really going to see the gulf between the PS5 and the Xbox Series X become more apparent, and the PS5 is not going to come out on top in this battle.
Well, I guess it all depends on the developers, right? Like, it's clear that there are more PlayStation 5s out there than Series X's. So what do they prioritize in that situation, right? I know there's a lot of or whatever, but people claim that these companies throw money to like optimize their games better for, you know, their platforms and stuff. I don't know how true that is.
There's no way. That's the thing.
I don't know.
The Callisto Protocol really started that whole rumor up, right? Because they had like 20 Sony developers in the credits, and then Sony basically had to come out and say they didn't help with frame rate or anything like that. They helped them get the DualSense features implemented in the game, which 20 devs, that seems pretty believable to me. I don't think those people were trucking away on the Callisto Protocol for PS5 being like, man, this one's going to run at 30 FPS more than it's going to run at 29 like it does on the Xbox.
You know, in a theoretical battle between the PlayStation 5 and the Series X, even if the PlayStation 5 doesn't come out on top of that situation, like this analyst is inferring, you still have to account for the Series S. Like, they still have to optimize for both the X and the S. So it might not even matter in that situation.
The crazy thing is that there actually was a huge gulf between the PS3 and the Xbox 360, but the PS3 was technically a more powerful console. They just didn't know how to use it at a lot of developers.
It was just too weird.
So you would see games like Assassin's Creed come out, and they legitimately like looked and ran better on the PS3.
Yeah, I read a whole article about this guy who did an analysis on the PS3 version of Oblivion versus Xbox 360.
Yeah,
and he was saying like there were some things on the PlayStation 3 version, even though it took a while to come out and it wasn't always the best, that were significantly better than what you would see on the 360.
Yeah, and then Skyrim, though, horrible on PS3 versus the 360, and Bioshock. Bioshock was terrible on the PS3. So you saw this happen a lot more back in the day. And when we were leading up to the PS5 and Series X, I thought we would see this happening again because of Xbox basically saying, look how much more graphical potential we have in our console. It's going to be the most powerful console ever. And then now there are differences. Generally speaking, the PS5 just seems to come out on top frame rate consistency wise, but Xbox seems to get high resolution in their games. Like, that seems to be the trend. I don't see how this is going to shake out in 1 to 2 years. Personally, this guy is saying that there's going to be new rendering techniques used in games that are going to work better on the Series X than the PS5. All this says to me is that if they are going to come up with new rendering techniques and all that, it just adds more evidence that there's going to be a PS5 Pro and Xbox Series X Plus. It's so weird that the PS5 Slim and Pro have leaked, but we don't know anything that's going on over at Xbox. Do you know what's going on with the Series S Plus or Series X Plus or Series Y?
Well, I mean, outside of the fact that there are dev kits out there already for these mid-gen refreshes.
There are for the Xbox?
They're out for the Xbox too. But other than that, to the degree that we've been talking about PS5 Pro and Slim on this channel, we're not anywhere close to the knowledge of whatever they have planned. Me personally, I want something in the middle, like a more powerful Series S or a digital X, something like that. Especially if Slim is coming first for PlayStation.
Yeah, the Slim,
a good move.
The Slim is less of a Slim and more like just a replacement. We've heard it's just going to be a way for Sony to make one console and stop spending money on 2 different SKUs.
That's cool too.
Yeah, it's just going to have a detachable disk drive. I'd like to see something similar to that on the Xbox side with like a better, like what you're saying, a digital X that's cheaper, and then you can buy a disk drive, sort of like the HDD drive that you could buy for the Xbox 360 back in the day before there was like Blu-ray as the standard, you know?
Yeah.
Like, we've seen that before. It would be awesome to see that over on Xbox. But
well, we already kind of see it with their controllers. Is very interesting, like with the Elite Series Core. Hey, you don't want all the attachments and stuff. You just want a new controller. You could buy the new controller. And then if you change your mind, you could buy the attachments later in this component pack. Why not do that with a console? That's a very good point.
yeah, unfortunately, they can't do that with the PSVR2 because you need everything that's involved with that because it's the headset and the controllers and one cable. But it would be cool to see stuff like that where it's more modular and you can start with the base unit and then build up how you want to from there. And I think that's what we're going to see going forward because the components that they're using in these things are always going to consistently get more expensive, right? And they got to figure out ways to combat that, but also have games still looking and running better than they do in the launch units.
Yeah,
and the launch units are pretty powerful. We haven't really seen them get pushed too hard at all.
I'm curious because that friend that I always reference when I'm on this channel, they have a dev kit. They have a PlayStation 5 dev kit. And before I was a YouTuber, they were like, yo, like, check this out. Isn't it crazy? And I was like, whoa, that is crazy. Yeah, I was like, whoa, that is crazy. That's cool. Maybe this is why I haven't seen him in a while, because maybe he has the dev kit for the Pro model.
You should ask him.
And I was like, yeah, like, do you have the like? I know you have the dev kit for the base model. Do you have the refresh one? Maybe that's why I haven't seen him in a while, because he doesn't want me to,
he doesn't want you leaking it on Xbox Ready or PS Ready. So yeah, basically the point of this whole news story is that I think we're going to see the PS5 Pro sooner rather than later. If games are going to get so advanced with Unreal Engine 5 and whatever Naughty Dog's next gen engine is that they're working on, we're probably going to see some new hardware, and I'm excited to see what Sony does with it.